And welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. With me, as he is every Monday night, is the old left-hander, Ross Grimsley. Ross,
Stanley,
how are you?
what's up, buddy? I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Everybody
great.
Healthy?
Everybody's healthy around me.
We got over our thing. We're fine. We're good.
Good. Hey, we're excited to kick off the new season with Ben McDonald, old number 19, who used to pitch. And Ben, I sent you a text before. I'm just curious. I said, we're on in 35 minutes, and you gave me a thumbs up. And I said, real quick, who wore 35 when you were wearing 19?
35 was Mike Messina, especially there toward the end. It was Moose. And I can't remember if before Moose got there, of course, I was there 3 years before Moose got there, if there was somebody else wearing 35. I don't maybe Mark. Williamson was 32, so
he was.
I don't remember 30.
I don't remember 35. I think you hit the guy I was talking about.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
hard to forget that number.
Always have you want to talk baseball, but you're a big SEC guy, and you do a lot of work with ESPN on SEC baseball. But tonight is an unbelievable night for the SEC to shine in football with Alabama ranked number 2 in the country against Georgia. I think that's the way it is. Who do you like in tonight's game, and how big a deal is this in SEC country?
It's huge. It's as we all know, it's a repeat of the SEC championship game where everybody thought Georgia was going to win that game a few weeks ago, and up jumps Nick Saban and up jumps Alabama, and played their very best game of the year to that point, because Alabama had some close calls along the way this year, lost a game because Georgia didn't lose a game in the regular season, and so all of a sudden Alabama showed up. But gosh, I can't pick a winner tonight. I mean, if I look at it, I go, it's awfully difficult to beat a team like Georgia, who the front line on that defense is an NFL front line. I mean, it is unbelievable. But Alabama handled them in the SEC championship game. So I don't know if I can go against Georgia. Having said that, for me, of our era, it's the greatest college football coach we've ever seen in Nick Saban. And you'd have to be a fool to go against him, because he seems to find a way, like Tom Brady seems to find a way. Nick Saban seems to find a way. And, this was supposed to be the year I kept hearing throughout SEC country was, well, Alabama's okay this year, but it's a little bit of an off year. Like, they're not quite as dominant as they have been in the past, and their defense isn't that good. And lo and behold, they're playing for a national championship in about an hour or so from now, And so it's the Nick Saban factor. He's a hell of a coach. But Georgia, I'll tell you what, Georgia may have something to say about it tonight. But regardless, it's a win for the SEC. Either way, they continue to show their dominance in college football.
Before we turn over to baseball, I know you went to LSU, and I'm sure you're an LSU fan through and through. Your thoughts on the coach, new coach there, Brian Davis?
Look, I think Kelly is the right guy for the job. Yeah, Brian Kelly. He's the right guy right now. LSU, in my opinion, this is from the outside looking in, but I live 20 minutes from university. LSU had kind of lost its way in a lot of ways. I didn't think there was a lot of discipline the last 3 or 4 years, And if you hear about Kelly, Kelly's a guy that's going to hold the 5-star recruit. He's going to treat him just the way he treats the walk-on guy. Everybody's going to be accountable. And for me, when you're dealing with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old kids, they have to be treated equally. They have to be treated the same way and held accountable for what they're doing. And I felt like a little bit of that got lost with LSU the last couple of years. We remember the season back in 3 years ago when LSU arguably had one of the most dominant college football seasons of all time with Joe Burrow and then winning a national title. But since then, LSU, 11-12 in the last 2 years, if you count the bowl game today. That's not acceptable for LSU football standards. And so I think Kelly's the right guy right now. I think he'll recruit well. He recruited well at Notre Dame. There's a ton of talent here in the state of Louisiana. We know that. I think he'll get those guys. He'll be able to go into the Midwest and recruit talent as well. And so I think it's a right hire. You got to get the horses in there. You got to be able to develop them. The SEC is a gauntlet. It's a lot like the American League East. I tell people that all the time. It's like, in the SEC and in the American League East in baseball, you can't be kind of good to compete. You got to be really good to compete. And that's what SEC football is. And that's what the American League East is right now. You can't be like a 500 team and say, okay, we're going to compete. No, you got to be better than that.
That's what Maryland football's up against. They're in the Big Ten against Ohio State and Michigan. So,
yeah,
Ross, I know you got some baseball questions, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Ben, you know, you coming out of LSU, you were one of the best athletes, all-around athletes to come out of LSU. Number one pick, the Orioles, 1989. You know, you got the Orioles have Rushman, the catcher. They got Rodriguez, the pitcher. They got a handful of other guys that are right there. What kind of number one picks, actually? What kind of pressure did that put on you? What kind of pressure did you put on yourself?
Well, Ross, you know this. I mean, there's always pressure to perform when you get to the big league level. That's what it's about, you know, and the guys that can accept that pressure, figure out ways to deal with it. And I'll be honest, as a young guy, when I got called to the big leagues at 21 years old, I let the pressure get to me. I let what people were saying in the background affect me in a lot of ways. And I thought I had to be perfect. And I forgot I was a 21-year-old kid for a while. I forgot I never called my own game. Even in college, my college coach called every pitch I ever threw in college. And now all of a sudden, I'm 21 and I'm in the big leagues, and I got to call my own game against the best hitters in the world. And so I forgot. You had
Hoyles. It was learning too.
Yes. I mean, at first it was Mickey Tettleton and Jamie Quirk and Bob Melvin, and then Chris Hoyles came along. And Chris was a young guy learning too. And of course, we all know the Cal Ripken story about him calling all of my pitches back in '92. But you know, I forgot that, you know, and I tried to live up to those expectations, and it was a bad mistake for me because I did not enjoy the game there for a while. I built it up inside. I held it inside. I tried to say, people say, well, you got to be the savior. Frank Robinson said in my first spring training, Ben, you got to win 20 games. You got to go win 20 games for it this year.
There's no pressure.
If we're going to be able to compete in the American League East. And I'm thinking, I don't even know how to pitch at the big league level. So I let that get to me for a while. And thank God for people like Rick Sutcliffe and Cal Ripken Jr. And they came to me, and Cal Ripken Sr. too, kind of took me under his wing and said, listen, you're going to have success up here and you're going to have a lot of failure at first. And you're going to have to figure it out. It's going to take some innings and it's going to take some starts and some pitches under your belt before the light bulb begins to flicker a little bit. And it took about 150, 200 innings in the big leagues before the light bulb started to flicker for me a little bit. And I started to kind of figure it out. Didn't ever learn it all because you never learn it all, but you get more comfortable, Ross. You know this, with the situations and what the expectations are and how you deal with those expectations. You kind of grow up in a lot of ways and you learn how to be a professional. And so it's difficult. Adley Rutschman is way more mature, I think, at 21 or 22 years old, what he is now, than what I was when I got called up. He's had an opportunity to kind of go to the minor leagues for a couple of years. He's been in a couple of big league camps. I think all that helps him out in a lot of ways. He's uber talented. I've been watching this kid since he started at Oregon, and I watched him at Oregon State, and he was really good there. He wowed me then, even before he was an Oriole. And look, he's going to do fine. But I want to warn the fans out there. He's not going to come in and hit 300 his first year. He's not going to hit 40 home runs. He's not probably going to be an all-star. We all hope that he is his first year, but that's not going to happen. It's going to be a learning curve for Adley. But listen, this guy's going to play for a long time. He's going to be a hell of a player. I'm excited about Grayson Rodriguez. I think he's a superstar too. I love his stuff when I watch him pitch. I'm excited about Heston Kjerstad, who's healthy now, who was the number one pick a couple of years ago. I think they hit a home run with Colton Cowser last year, a kid that came from not a big school, but a kid that really looks like he's shining right now. Gunnar Henderson, others that are out there. I mean, look, I get excited talking about the Orioles right now because I think of where this minor league system was 3, 4, 5 years ago and where it is right now. And MLB Pipeline has them ranked number 1 overall right now. And look, that's going to get even better because we got the number 1 pick coming again this year, and that's going to be out there too with some really extremely talented players as well. So I love where our minor league system is. I love what Michael Lyles has done at this point because you guys know this. You got to build it within. If you're going to compete every year in and year out in the AL East, you got to have that nucleus of guys, and you got to have your minor league system bumping to be that part. Now, having said that, when do we go out and attack the free agent market? I think that's the $1 million question right now. When do we go add the pieces of the puzzle to kind of get us over the top? That's going to happen. We all know you can't develop a World Series caliber team just within. You got to go put some pieces of that puzzle together. And the $1 million question is, okay, when do we go attack the free agent market?
Knowing what you know now, knowing the guys, number 1 picks, your number 2 picks, and guys, just all the guys. going what you've been through and what several, players have been, what would you tell these guys now? Your Rushman, your Rodriguez, all these guys, what would be the thing that you would tell them to expect coming into the big leagues, or even, with all the hoopla that, the sports writers are writing these guys up, and it has to put pressure on you. I don't care who you are. What do you tell these guys?
Stay off of social media for one thing. I know it's hard to do because that's where a lot of these kids live now.
Exactly.
But that would be one of my biggest things is, look, get off of social media. Don't believe what everybody's writing about you. Don't believe you're never as good as what some people say you are. You're never as bad as what some people say you are. You're somewhere in the middle. And so that'd be the first thing I tell you. The other great advice I got from Cal Ripken Jr. When I was 21 years old, he said, Ben, if you go work hard every day, be the first one to the ballpark, be the last one to leave, outwork everybody out there, give 100% every time. He said, the fans of Baltimore will take to you and you will be right in the mix. And I took that to heart, and I was as hard a worker as there was anybody. And I think you got to go out and you got to bust your tail every day. I love the guys that show up early. I love the guys that stay late. I think it's important to have camaraderie with your teammates in the clubhouse after the game. It's okay to drink an adult beverage, have a beer or two after the game with their buddies. I know with COVID and all that kind of stuff, they were running guys out of the clubhouse. I get all that, man. I hope we're past that now, but I got to know all of my teammates. I cared about one another like you did. We got to visit with one another by just having a cold beer after the ball game every now and then. That's what I would encourage them to do is go bust your butt every day. Take advantage of this short window to play baseball because we all know it doesn't last forever. It's a blink of an eye. It goes by that fast, even if you're lucky enough to be one of the lucky ones that play 10 or more years at the big league level. I think Adley Rutschman can do that. I think Grayson Rodriguez can do that too. But I'm excited about the Orioles right now. I know it's a gauntlet of a division, but I love where they're going. And look, it's been tough to watch, Ross. You know that. Look, the last 2 years,
I know.
It has been pull your hair out moments at times. We don't like to see the Orioles lose 100 games, but it's part of the process. And I tell you what, for all the fans that have stuck it out, you'll appreciate the success that is coming that much better because you've been through the tough times with this organization the last 3 or 4 years.
Ross, I got one more question to ask you about what you alluded to before about how much pressure you put on yourself. I'm not suggesting that you would trade anything that Scott Boras did for you, but how did he play into that? Because he was trying to develop his own swagger at that time as a negotiator, and you were kind of silent throughout it. And it was sort of, he was the front person. Do you think the way he handled things put more pressure on Ben McDonald?
I know that because we did some things that never had been done before, I think that put more pressure on me. In other words, I was the first guy, if you remember, to ever get a multi-year contract from an amateur status. I signed a 3-year guaranteed contract. That had never been done before. And so I think in some ways that did put a little extra pressure on me. But I also, on the grading scale, and that was his point, was I graded out higher than any other prospect at the time that had ever come through Major League Baseball, that ever played the game. And so that was his thinking point. Is like, listen, we got a special talent here that's graded out higher than any other talent before. I want to do something different along the way. So I never faulted for that. But here's what gets lost about Scott Boras is he told me 1,000 times, Stan, Ben, if you're ever not comfortable with the situation, and that's what he tells his players today, I know that for a fact, I am ready to settle when you are. So I'm going to go forward what I think is the best for you. I'm going to go forward what I think your talent is. I'm going to go forward and do the things that I think you deserve to get to this point. But if you're ever not comfortable with the situation, we'll call it all off and we'll go play baseball. And so that's what I always loved about Scott. Yes, did he push the buttons? Yes. Did he walk that line all the time? But he's still setting the market today, Stan. Yeah. And as and it's hard to argue with the talent that he's had over the years. I think if you go back and look at the talent that he's had over the years, it kind of speaks for itself. And so while he might be a tough negotiator and some GMs don't want to deal with him from time to time, and he does get a bad rap occasionally. I'm just going to tell you, if you had a young man that was 21 years old coming out of college, I can't think of anybody better I'd want to represent my kid.
Great answer. Hey, Ben, I want to flip over. The Orioles have made one signing. They signed this guy, Jordan Lyles, who I know you're aware of. I went through his numbers with like a fine-tooth comb. His season he threw about 140 innings, I want to say. His ERA was in the fives, but when I broke down his starts, he had 8 starts where he threw about 35 or 40 innings with an earned run average of over 12. And then in the other 22 starts, his earned run average was like 3.35.
Right.
What does that say? What does that say to you about him?
Well, it tells you one thing, that 22 out of 30-something starts, he's going to give you a chance to win. That's what jumps at me right away. I love that about him. I don't know Jordan, but I can tell you he's want to get those bad starts down. You know, pitches are kind of like golf. It's not always about your good shots. Sometimes it's about your bad shots when it comes to ERA. If you have a lot of bad shots in golf, you're going to feel like you struck the ball pretty well that day, but you might have shot a 95, and you're like, I hit the ball pretty good, but I hit out of bounds 4 times. Well, he had 7 or 8 games last year where he gave up a lot of runs, and it jumped that ERA up. But he was very competitive. And so I think first of all, he's an innings eater. That's what I noticed about him. He's a durable guy. He's a guy that's going to take the ball every 5th day. He's going to go out and he's going to give you some innings. I think that's a valuable commodity in today's game, a guy that can chew some innings up, a guy that can give you 6 innings in a world now where the average AL East pitcher goes 4 2/3 now. I mean, if he can go out there for 5 2/3 or 6 and give you 7 every now and then, it really saves the bullpen. And so he's a veteran guy that's been around. There's no doubt Camden Yards is not an easy ballpark to pitch in. We all know that. He's going to give up some runs from time to time. But anybody that pitches in Camden Yards may have a little bit higher ERA than they would at other places. But I like the fact that he's a veteran on a young staff that can kind of tutor the young guys that are out there a little bit. But I also feel like he's an innings eater and a guy that's going to go out and give you a chance to win. And look, if he gets 34 starts under his belt this year and he gives the Orioles a chance to win 23 times, I think you call that a success.
Great answer. Ross, go ahead.
Yeah, Ben, just talking about what you said about pitching in Camden Yards, that's pretty scary pitching there. Do you think at any time that they may either raise the fences or move them back? Because like you said, that's a tough place to pitch, and it affects pitchers. I don't care what anybody says. You go in there, you make good pitches, you'll go home runs. But you think there's a chance that they'll ever move the fences back or raise them or do something to make it a little more inviting for pitchers?
Yeah, I could see that happening, and it's hard to believe it's the 30th anniversary of Camden Yards coming up. Can you believe it's been 30 years already? I mean, that really makes me feel old. And I remember we opened that ballpark up in April. The wind was blowing in. We had the north wind blowing in, and we were all looking at each other like, all right, it's pretty fair ballpark, wind blowing in, we're going to be okay here. Then all of a sudden, May rolled around in June and the wind started blowing out. We went, this isn't a very fair place to pitch at all. But, I could see that. But I also think it may depend on what kind of team the Orioles build.
Sure.
If they build a very offensive club, a club that can hit a lot of home runs, I think they may keep the fences where they are. But if they feel like pitching and defense becomes the strength, in say 2 or 3 years from now, I can also see them either raising the wall or pushing the wall back a little. So we see that all the time in the professional game and in the college game. I think that a lot of times the dimensions end up being what the strength of that particular team is at home to quote unquote give them the home field advantage. And that's the way it should be. So we'll have to wait and see what kind of team the Orioles are putting together and see where they're at 2 years from now, and maybe see what there's going to be any, additions or subtractions or whatever with the ballpark.
Ross, you got one?
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
We're talking with Ben McDonald, and Ben, I was wondering the situation where they let Pedro Severino go, they let Austin Wynns go. Do you think that is saying right out in the open that Rutschman is going to be the number 1 catcher from day one? But you have that roster manipulation possibility. We don't know how this agreement will affect that. Where do you see Rutschman being this year?
Well, I was not surprised about Severino. I
wasn't either. Yeah.
With the money that he was potentially going to make in arbitration, and I'm not picking on Sevy. I think he's a great guy, but I was not impressed with the defense at all. Like, I did not like the way he called a ball game. I did not like the way he blocked balls. For a big league catcher, I was not impressed with him. Now, at times he could get hot with the bat and he could drive in some runs. And I know Skipper really liked him and Hyder liked him because he did come up with some big hits the last couple of years. There's no doubt he didn't have the offensive year this year that maybe he had the year before. But defensively, I felt like he wasn't going to be the guy because I feel like with a young pitching staff and a pitching staff that we know mightily struggled last year, we got to be good guys behind the plate. We got to be able to catch the ball. We got to be able to call good games. We got to be able to communicate with our young pitchers to help grow them as fast as we can grow them. And the worst thing we can do with a young pitching staff is not make the average play behind them on defense and not have a catcher back behind home plate that can defensively really call a game and help a young pitcher out. So I was not shocked about that. I'm with you. I think it depends on what happens with the new basic agreement. It could be a roster manipulation. Adley Rutschman's ready. I mean, let's be honest about it. Defensively, he was ready 2 years ago when he came out of college, in my opinion. I felt like he could block balls, frame balls, call a game 2 years ago when he came out of college. Now, offensively, he needed the at-bats. He's still going to need the at-bats to really figure out big league pitching day in and day out. But from a defensive standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, I felt like he was ready a couple years ago. He's ready all the way around right now to participate at the big league level. There is no doubt in my mind he's going to do fine. Again, don't expect him to hit 40 homers. That's not going to happen. Don't expect him to hit 300. That's not going to happen. But he'll be a very good catcher this year when he does get called up. We'll just have to wait and see when that is. He's good enough to be there right now, but I know we've signed a couple of guys. Nottingham is one of them, I think, and another guy that could be, backup catchers, if you will, defensive catchers. I wouldn't be surprised if Adley started the year in AAA this year, and then, a month into the season, here comes Rutschman to be the everyday catcher.
I go out to Bowie last year on the night that Grayson Rodriguez was pitching, and it was a promotion. They called it gas can night. Anyway, the crowd was smoking. It was electric. You could tell these were Oriole fans out there to see the future of the club. And I watched Rodriguez pitch, but what I came away with was at the end of every inning, Rutschman was out there interfacing with Rodriguez, talking to him on the way to the dugout. How much does that impact pitchers to have a catcher much more engaged than Sevy or Austin, somebody that's really passionate about his defense?
I think it's huge. To have that look, the pitcher-catcher relationship, and Ross knows this, is different than any other relationship you'll have with your shortstop or your center fielder or anybody else. That is a special relationship. He has to know me like the back of his hand. He has to know my moods, my body language, everything that I'm doing. He has to know because he's got to come out there and get in my rear end when he needs to, or he's got to be able to back off when he needs to. So he needs to know. There's no doubt that Adley Rutschman knows Grayson Rodriguez. He knows every tendency that he has. He knows when his stuff's good. He knows when he's giving him 100%. He knows all that thing about him. And I like the fact they have that relationship and they can talk to one another. They can be honest about one another, but they can also be best friends off the field too. And I think that's important as well. I like a catcher that's engaged. I like a catcher that comes back to the dugout and says, hey, I like your stuff today. Hey, big guy, we got to pick it up. We got to go this inning. We got to one. They just scored you 2 runs. We got a 3-2 lead here in the 5th. I need your best stuff this inning. I need you. I like that kind of guy. I want him to get in I want him to keep me going along the way. I think Adley's that kind of guy. I noticed that when he was in college, he was a guy that really communicated well with his pitchers along the way. I think he'll do the same thing at the big league level. They'll all learn together. And look, that's what this is about, is coming up together, learning together, then putting it to use at the big league level.
Ross, you got a couple?
Yeah, no, that is so true, Ben, because I know when I was with the Reds, I was 20 years old. They had Bench, Rose, Perez, all these guys.
Yeah, you had that horrible catcher, Johnny Bench.
Awful, just terrible. But what was really neat, it just like you said, between innings, sometimes I'd ask what the second time up, I go, what do I throw this guy? What should I start him off with? And you learn more as a player. I think just being in the games and talking to the veteran guys that are there that will help you along. It's really important. And just the way they communicate with you. And everybody wants to win. They want to do as good as they can. But having that communication, like Ben said, is God, it's so important. And it just, not only do you need good talent to win, but you got to have communication, camaraderie. and that ability to talk, like one of the biggest learning lessons I think a lot of guys had is after games when you'd sit around. I coached in Calgary in AAA for the Mariners for 6 years. Guys didn't go home till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting around.
Yes.
They were talking about baseball.
Right.
Even in the big leagues, we sat around. I learned more listening because back then we had to keep our mouth shut. When you come up, shut your pie hole and listen.
I was told that several times. Yes. I remember those days. Yes.
Because you ain't going to hear nothing with your mouth open. So listen in. So I learned that early, but the information that you got was so amazing, that you got from these guys that, and like I said, I don't know if it's so much now because I don't know now if a lot of the guys are willing to go to the veteran guys and ask them about things. That's one of the problems. And I talk to, and I'll ask you the same thing. A lot of times, I asked Palmer, I asked Bench when we had him on the show. The guys come and ask you about catching. The guys come and ask you about pitching. And no, they don't, because it's at the tip of their fingers with the media, with your computer or your iPad.
Right.
So that you kind of scratch your head. Wait a minute, that's kind of crazy. But and asking you, does anybody come and say, "Hey Ben, what do you think about this?" And not as much as you would think, probably.
Right. No, I mean, I had a chance a couple of years ago before COVID hit to be in uniform in spring training and watch some of the guys throw their bullpens and just kind of hang out and get to know them a little bit, And there was a few guys that came and asked questions, about Camden Yards in the early days and maybe how you held your breaking ball and things of that nature, And I think we've gotten so big into the analytics now, and there is a place for the analytics. I'm not saying there's not, because the game has changed, but I think in today's world, it has to be a perfect combination of analytical stuff, but it's still some old school mechanical stuff and tendencies. And what do you, like you said, I learned so much sitting on the bench on days I wasn't pitching, because I'd sit next to Bob Melvin. I'd sit next to Cal Ripken Jr. And I go, what's this guy looking for? Mike Messina made him look really bad the last time on a breaking ball. So you going to go for a sit on a breaking ball this time? Yes, this guy will. No, this guy won't. This guy's not going to change his approach. He may change it the next series, which you see him. But that's what I always learned from Cal. Cal used to tell me, he said, Ben, the best hitters in baseball will make adjustments from at bat to at bat. He said the average hitters in baseball will make an adjustment the next time you see them. If we really had a lot of success in a series against them, they're going to go back and look at that film. And the next time we see them, they'll be looking for those certain pitches, And there's some guys, he said, that's never going to make adjustments. They're going to be who they are. It was my job to figure that out, who was who in certain situations. And I'll tell you one thing that was so valuable in my career, and Rick Sutcliffe told me this. He said, Ben, you can't always pitch a guy to his weakness. He said, the situation of the ball game determines how you're going to attack every hitter. I was like, what do you mean? I want to get every hitter. I want to get him out every time.
Exactly.
He said, no. He said, Ben, when you're winning a ball game in the 7th inning and you got 2 out and the score is 7-1, and let's say Paul Molitor comes to a plate, and we all know his best strength is a fastball up, out, over the plate. He hammers that ball.
Right.
He said, we know we're going to get him out inside or maybe with a breaking ball. But in that situation, you pitch him to his strength. You throw him a fastball. What's the worst thing that can happen? He said he's going to hit a double to the gap of the opposite field. That's okay. You have set him up. But if you always go to the well every time, you're not going to get him out when it matters the most. And it matters the most when it's the 7th inning and you're winning 3-2 and there's runners on second and third and 2 out. And now you got to get him out. How are you going to get him out? And that ball went, oh my gosh, the light bulb went, bing! It's like, okay, I'm starting to figure this stuff out. And that doesn't mean you always execute your game plan, but at least you have a game plan of how you want to attack hitters according to the situation of a ball game.
I was fortunate. I watched Bob Gibson do that. Obviously, Bob Gibson was Bob Gibson. But, Fergie Jenkins, Mike Cuellar, McNally, all these guys. That's just so. You don't. Every now and then you go to their strength.
Sure.
But you don't do it when it's going to hurt you.
That's right.
That puts it in their mind. So it is so amazing. They don't do that now. I'm getting everybody out. I'm going to
right.
throw that high fastball and then break that hammer off or whatever, no
That's
matter
right.
what. And that's
Ross, the game has changed in some ways where I look at some pitchers pitch like, and it's almost we're in a little bit of an era with some guys where I'm going to outstuff you, if that makes sense. In other words, my stuff is better, and here it is. I'm going to throw my high spin rate fastball up in the zone at 96, and I'm going to throw this wipeout breaking ball behind it. I don't care what your strengths are. I don't care what the situation is. This is what you're getting from me. Boom, boom, boom. And that's kind of where we are with some guys. And then we have the guys out there that are, in my opinion, that are still what I call a complete pitcher. He's still pitching to your weaknesses. He can still do a lot of different. He can throw a two-seamer. He can throw a four-seamer. He can throw an overhand breaking ball. He can cut it a little bit. He's going to pitch to what he's seeing and how you're approaching him that day and how you're attacking him. There are still a lot of those guys out there, too. And to be honest with you, I think we're going to find a time we start to get back to those guys, especially from a starting. Now, bullpen guys, I think, Ross, we can agree that when we start getting to the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, it's going to be, I'm going to outstuff you with a lot of guys because here's my stuff. But I think there's a time where we're going to see starting pitchers start to back off a little bit, not be max effort from pitch one to try to work a little bit deeper into ball games to try to get through 6 innings.
Exactly.
Yes, I think we're going to get back to that time where I'm not going to say everybody's going to do it, but 4 2/3 innings average for the AL East pitchers is embarrassing, in my opinion. We got to go out and give them 5, sometimes 6 innings.
Man, I
think the fans will really appreciate that because you don't see the Koufax, Marichal, Palmer, Ryan. You want to see those matchups, and they don't have that now.
Right.
I think that's hopefully that'll come back.
Ben, I got 2 quickies for you. One, I'm going to ask you to put your analyst hat on about a couple players, Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins. I'm going to tell you an anecdote. When Earl Weaver came back to manage in '85, he ended up having the second half of the year 2 players who had never really proven themselves to be really big leaguers. Floyd Rayford, who I'm sure you remember, and Mike Young. And they both had fantastic second halves of '85. Early in '86, I was on the talk radio then, and I was knocking Eddie Murray about something. I was kind of a controversial talk show host back in those days who thought he knew everything. And Weaver comes up to me one day and he says, "Do you really think I'm worried at all about Ripken and Murray and what they're going to do?" He goes, "They've proven it already." He goes, their numbers will be there at the end. He goes, "The 2 guys I'm scared to death about are those 2 over there, Rayford and Young." And neither one of them ever did anything in the major leagues again. Is it fair to think that Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins, have they graduated to where they're the guys you can count on? Or is there still something that they're going to have to get through, another gauntlet to get through to be established to that level?
That's a great question, Stan. I mean, I would put Tyler Wells in that category too. I mean, Tyler Wells, a Rule 5 guy. Nobody saw this coming. That's one of my big question marks this year. Why I can't wait for the season. Can Tyler Wells be as dominant this year as he was last year? We don't know the answer to that yet. I always felt like watching Austin Hayes. Always felt like watching him was if he could just stay healthy. If he could just, because I go back and I look at his minor league numbers in that year when he was almost a minor league player of the year, 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, it was a monster, and I mean a monster year. So you always looked at him and you went, can this dude stay healthy? If he stays healthy and he gets 500 at-bats to big league level, what kind of numbers can he put up? He still hadn't done that, although he was most healthy last year than he has in any of his other years to this point. So I still like Austin Hayes a lot. I still think the biggest upside for him is, can he give us 500 at-bats? Can he be an everyday player? And if he does, what's the numbers going to look like? Still struggle a little bit against right-handed pitching. We know that, although it got better last year, the second half of the season. But I want to see him do that and give us 450, 500 at-bats to see what kind of numbers he can put up if he can stay healthy. So I still like him. Cedric Mullins, look, wow. I mean, who saw that coming?
Nobody.
I mean, look, it's a guy that's been up and down, back and forth, never really tore it up in the minor leagues. You go back and look at the numbers. I mean, he had spurts in the minor leagues where you went, oh, maybe. But he was never a big college guy that came from a big school. He was a big recruit out of high school, never a big prospect in the Orioles system. And then all of a sudden, he's up and down, loses his job the 1 year, goes all the way down to Double-A to try to figure it out, gets a new hitting coach in the offseason. Oh, lo and behold, shows up about this time last year and goes, oh, by the way, guys, I'm not switch hitting anymore. And we're going, what in the world is this guy's got no chance, right? And here we go. He comes out of the gate in Fenway Park last year like his rear end's on fire and throws up a 30-30 season. And you're going, what the hell just happened? So we always knew he could play defense. We always knew he could go get him in the outfield. The question is, could he hit? I do think there's a question mark there. Yeah. You do it 1 year, we'll see, right? I mean, we'll see. As an Oriole fan, I want to say, yeah, he's going to be. Now, look, does he ever hit 30 homers again? I don't know that to be true, but I think he's a guy that gets you 20, every year. I think he's quite capable of stealing 30 bases every year for a while. I think that's a given. To say he hits 30 again, I don't know if that ever happens. But I do believe in Cedric Mullins because this is what you know about Cedric Mullins. Cedric Mullins never gave up on himself. And for me, that says a lot. For what that young man went through from being the starting center fielder all the way down to Double-A, working his way back, being the starting center fielder, being on the club the next year, getting sent down again after a dreadful start again. And don't forget this. The only reason Cedric Mullins got called up 2 years ago, got back to the big leagues was why? Because Austin Hayes got hit in the ribs with a pitch, and Cedric Mullins got an opportunity to come back to the big leagues. And he did well. He started bunting. His confidence went up. If Austin Hayes doesn't get hit in the ribs, who knows if Cedric Mullins ever puts together the season he did last year. That's how crazy baseball is. And so I'm happy for him. I believe in Cedric just because I know what the young man's been through, how hard he has worked, how far he went down to come back. I'm a believer in Cedric Mullins.
Got one last question for you, Ben. Like players, do broadcasters get better? How much better a broadcaster is Ben McDonald today than you were when you started doing some stuff on ESPN, and now that you're doing it for a full baseball season of college and the pros? How much more comfortable are you?
I think my job is like any job, like what y'all do, Stan, you and Ross, is that the more you do it, the more comfortable. Yes, I always tell people the two hardest things I have doing what I do right now is, one, remembering how difficult the game is. Sometimes where I sit, guys, the game looks a lot easier. And Ross, you know what I'm talking about. The game looks easier from our little perch up there. And I got to keep taking myself back going, this game is a hard game. Really? It is a difficult game. That's a difficult thing to do out there with those guys. So I always try to remember how difficult the game was. My other biggest challenge is baseball is a repetitive game. We know that. I mean, it's a repetitive game as any game is. So trying to say things the same way but a different way, if that makes sense at all. Trying to use a little bit different terminology to try to draw people in. So I feel like I'm much better. I feel like I learn, like when I pitch, I learn every time I do a broadcast. There's always something different that happens in the middle of a ball game. I would go, God, dog, I could have been better here. I could have been better here. I need to be better here. And so we're always pushing for the information and studying as much as we can. I never knew, guys, how much studying. I mean, I tell people all the time, I was at LSU for 2.5 years. I didn't even read as much as I do in 1 year doing Orioles stuff right now. I mean, look, I didn't go to LSU to get an education. I went to play basketball and baseball, And so I read more in a year of doing Oriole and college stuff than I do in every year I ever did at LSU, which is cool. But I enjoy what I do. My mom told me when I was a kid, she said, son, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so I love what I do. I want to be good at what I do. And every day I strive to be even better. I've tried to figure out a way to draw in somebody that's just watching baseball for the first time to try to teach the game and learn the game where that viewer comes back the next night and says, oh, I want to watch the Oriole game again, or I want to watch Mississippi State play Ole Miss because Ben McDonald's doing the game, and I like the way he talks about the game, the way he explains it. So it's fun for me. That's all I have left now is to be able to talk about the game. I can't play it anymore, but I do enjoy it once they say play ball. And it's a super busy year again. I think I did 130-something games combined last year. It was a busy year for me, but when they say play ball, guys, I am all in no matter where I'm at.
What's your schedule? What's your schedule for the Orioles?
I got half the schedule. As far as I know, me and Jim are splitting time again, half the schedule again. And so it's going to be a busy year. I don't know if we're going to get to spring training. Who knows with the COVID stuff that's going on. I mean, look, and plus, with the basic agreement, let's keep our fingers crossed and pray that they get this thing done on time. And I want Brendan Hyde to have a normal spring training. It feels like since Hyder took over, like, nothing's been normal.
Right.
Like it's been the spring training cut short. We got COVID, we got this. I want to have a normal spring training for the young guys too. Like I want to see Grayson Rodriguez get some reps. I want to see Kerstad get some reps. I want to see Colton Cowser get some reps in big league camp. And I feel like if camp is cut short, we may lose some of those fringe guys that we want to get a look at and not get to see them at all because we got to get our regular guys ready to go. So I got my fingers crossed for our normal spring training.
Well, I tell you what, Ben, everybody loves you, buddy. I want to tell you that, and I am thrilled to listen to you. I don't know, it just something about you, people. I wish you did all the games.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Ross. And look, I tell people all the time.
I love it.
I tell people all the time. I was a kid when I got to Baltimore, and I've always had a good relationship with the fans in Baltimore, and they took to me. And look, my career did not go the way I wanted it to go. It didn't go the way that the fans wanted it to go. I wish I could. I really felt like I had the body to play for 15 or 16 years, but my arm gave out, and that's a whole different show, if you will. Maybe I threw too much when I was younger. Who knows? But, that's part of it. But the fact that the Orioles took me in, and I grew up, I became a man in Baltimore. I was 21 like you. You were 20 when you got to the big leagues, and you grow up really fast. And so I had some good people in Baltimore. I love the fan base. And as a fan, I want to see 45, 46,000 people back at Camden Yards. I want to see it again like it was when we opened it up 30 years ago. And it is just this ballpark is a spectacular ballpark. It stood the test of time over the years. And the roar of Camden Yards with the fans being so close to you is like none other. I get goosebumps just talking about it right now. So I want to see that excitement come back to Baltimore again, and I love the direction this organization is going.
Ross, we mentioned to Ben that we do 30 minutes. He's done close
we
to
didn't.
50.
We never do.
Well, I don't want to take advantage of him. Ben, enjoyed the game tonight. You're a great communicator, and Baltimore loves you. There's no question about that.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I look forward to visiting with you guys again in the near future.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
For Ross Grimsley and our guest, Ben McDonald, I'm Stan the Fan. I'll be on Wednesday night with the owner of the Baltimore Blast, Ed Hale, 7 o'clock on Wednesday, 7:15 actually on Wednesday. See you then. Bye.